Good afternoon, everyone. This is author Tim Brown of the book Uncommon Athletes. I'm on staff here in Central Ohio with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I'm blessed today to have with me a great couple, great friends, and great partners. We've been on this journey together. When I began with FCA, Tom and Julie were already on campus at Ohio State. Her and Jim Smickey, they were the first ones I sought out. I first sought them out, and not just to have a foothold at Ohio State, but to learn how to do ministry, because they were the veterans, and I got the opportunity to watch them and how they built those relationships with student athletes. So Tom and Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been talking to some of the athletes at Ohio State, and it all comes back to Tom and Julie. I've heard that so many times, about that. So who is this Tom and Julie? Let me get them on here so I can tell the world who they are and all the awesome things that they're doing. First thing, Tom and Julie, can you share how you guys got involved in ministry and how'd you end up? Are you from Columbus? How'd you end up at Ohio State?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I met Julie at Michigan State when I was working there with a group called Athletes in Action. Ministry to college students, and we met and then got married, remained there for another 2 years after we were married. And then we went to seminary out in California. And so when we came back after seminary, we were assigned to Ohio State.
Well, Ms. Julie, can you share how that began? And I know it's just taking off with those. How receptive were the women's to you coming in and sharing with them?
Fortunately, I love sports.
Okay.
We both played in college and high school. Yeah. And so for me, just backtrack, I went to Hillsdale College one year and then went to Michigan State, and then as a single, I was wanted to go into the ministry, but I thought I was going to work with high school students. Then I married Tom, and it was it seemed really natural. Like I loved sports. So that was a good thing. But fast forward now, and I have 4 children. So I did some ministry, but as they got older, I had more freedom to do ministry. So I love college age so much. And so for me, I just met with, a lot of times it was the girlfriends of the football players or basketball players. Right. And after a while, I just would mentor girls one-on-one, and then create like a large group Bible study with several different sports because they loved getting to know each other. So 2 years ago, we decided that it was no longer a great fit for us. So we just started CrossSports, and so I've just been mentoring girls. I have a Bible study. Obviously, I'm doing Zoom all the time now, or FaceTime. But so that's a little bit of what I do.
And one of the lessons, Tim, that we learned during that time and up to the present is you want to include other people that you trust and that you believe in what they're doing. And that's why we've been tied with Fellowship of Christian Athletes a lot, because I saw Tim doing good things.
Yes. So
initially I would bring athletes in to kind of speak at some of the huddle groups at the high schools. Yes. And we saw some good things there. And Tim's continued to expand it and doing a great job.
Yes.
Here in Columbus. So
I would say, Miss Julie, as you build those relationships, and you guys are working at that college age where you have these 18-year-old kids come in on their own, got all this freedom. How hard is that, or what are some of the challenges that you see with college age and ministry on campus?
For me, working with athletes is easier than working with non-athletes. I think because they're natural leaders, most of them, and they take coaching really well. And so kind of like being a spiritual coach in their life. So I think the challenge is time. They're just so busy, and their standards, as Ohio State has gotten better every year academically, they're really good students as well. So their focus is academics and sports. And so the challenge for me more is how can I, instead of how do you fit into my life, how can I fit into yours? So I try to flex with their schedules. I meet them where they are. I have very short frames of time where I meet with them. And then when I began doing like optional reflection times, which is kind of like a chapel, but we call it optional because it's optional. I was doing that with lacrosse and women's basketball. And Tim, I had you in there doing an optional reflection time. So I think for me, the challenge is more the time commitment, time frame, and being very sensitive to that.
And Tom, I know you with that football team, I can imagine how their time is pulled, for so many different things. But what do you see, if you're speaking to a young person, a young athlete, tell them what the benefits of carving out that time to meet with someone, that time with the Lord. What would you tell them are some of the benefits of that?
The benefits to the athlete, you mean?
Yeah, to the athlete, spending that time with you.
Yeah, I think through the years, what I've seen is I'm constantly amazed at how old or mature a lot of these guys seem, even when they're 19 or 20 years old. They've kind of been on top of things coming out of high school. You don't come to Ohio State and play football if you weren't really good in high school. So you have, you've had attention, you've had accolades, but they tend to put it into perspective way better than I would expect them to. Now I do kind of expect it. It's like they come to Ohio State. When they were in high school, they were, the big fish in a little pond.
Right. Now
they're just another one of the fish in a big pond with some sharks in there too.
Oh yeah.
It's very competitive. And so you see them ready to make some changes in life and to make some more mature decisions. They're not, they're still in relationship with parents, but they're not controlled as much, if you will. And so, you can really see them grow. And I think for Julie and I at that college level, I feel like through the years, even with non-athletes when we worked, was, we always viewed, hey, you're in college, you're an adult, and you need to make decisions that are going to affect your life going forward as well as while you're in college. And I think in treating people like that and with respect and exposing them to the scripture and the things of God that we've seen. Yeah, we've seen very good responses. They can own their responses and they can live them out. So
that's good stuff.
And I think just to go on with that other question, Tim, another thing is trust. And that's the challenge, especially with athletes, because they're always being asked for something or to do something. And so for me, I come in with, I don't really have an agenda. Like I put it aside and I just want to love them as a person and not to use them for their platform, but to really build into them. That's why I keep in touch with athletes far after they've graduated, because I want them to know I care about them as a person. And as I build that trust, you build that relationship, and which is huge. And they'll tell me that's one of the number one things, and coaches as well, that trust is just huge in their lives. And so once we've established that, I encourage them with why it's beneficial to meet. You can have that strong foundation, a Christian foundation, helping them study the Bible, helping them to write their testimony, to share their faith, to pray with their team. Those are huge things. So anyways, yeah.
That's good. That's good. Hey, Julie, can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned your 4 children, and I know we have some ladies and, women whose husbands are in ministry. And then how were you able to juggle that, with Tom being on the road meeting and whatnot, and you, how were you able to juggle that time of your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it was something that I had to revisit almost every 6 months. I'd reevaluate and say, what am I doing? My children are my greatest disciples. So I had that mindset, just early on thinking about that. And so honestly, it was every 6 months. It was like, okay, how am I doing now? What can I do more? And so for me, when they were little, I call them one-shot things. I would speak at something. I would attend an event, so I would do things that weren't like over and over, like I had to be there like weekly all the time. And I would evaluate that. I was very involved with my church, and which children are just welcome there because you have the nursery and, all those things. So that's kind of what I would do. And then as they got older, I actually had a couple of my children go, wait, why are you having a Bible study? They wanted me to get more involved. And we did summer missions, and we would take our children with us. And it was just a family affair where you would invite these people, the college students, over. They would babysit for you. You just build relationships. And that became very organic. It just grew. And so then finally, when they were older, I could, leave the house and go and do Bible studies. But a lot of it was hospitality, having people in our homes, doing a lot of dinners and parties and things like that, where my children could watch and be a part of it. And they weren't like always pushed aside.
I think that's so important. That's what I share with coaches and just people in ministry, how your ministry first starts at home. It starts with your own children at home, and you don't want them to look at you later on in life, well, Mom, you missed this, or Dad, you missed all those times, And so even with Carmen and I, we tried to make sure that our children, like you said, were right there with us. They got to see Mom and Dad. They got to see what we were doing. And then I believe also they got to see the benefit of it as well. When they see other kids talking about, oh, Tom, your dad's a great guy. He did this for me. Or Miss Julie, oh, I just love your mom. Then this thing became real for them. They began to see that benefit of that. And so I think that's just so important. And I appreciate you sharing that with us today. But let's talk about the impact that a Christian student athlete can have on a college campus. I think about, I remember one year when Joe Penn and the guys did that big event with the Michigan-Ohio State deal. I think about the Aaron Craft effect when he was there, the impact that he had. Tom, can you speak to that about the impact that a student athlete can have on a college campus?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of times I tend to think of what's the impact they can have on the community, the broader community of Columbus, Central Ohio, high schools. And it varies a lot with the athletes, like how much influence they have on the campus. Now, like last year, we coordinated with the guy that runs the big campus ministry at Ohio State. They meet at the Newport on Sunday evenings, and and so they wanted to do a thing where they had some of the football players come in. So the interesting thing is, these guys come in, I mean, they're talking to people their same age. And yet, what I would see, if these guys, if they speak well, if they carry themselves well, the influence that they have even within the campus can be really large. It was very big attendance. We had Justin Fields come out and CJ Saunders, who's a local guy, Josh Myers. They did a great job. The students responded really well. And so you can see that but their influence continues. You mentioned Joel Penton, and he was influential within the team. I would say Joel's influence took off even broader as he went on. He's written 2 books. He has a speaking ministry.
Yeah, I think the benefit of that, I love what you said about sometimes we think that those guys can have a big influence in the Central Ohio area. Because remember, you're packing 100,000 people in to watch you play football. Millions of people are watching you on television. But I love what you guys have done. You have reminded those guys that they can have that same impact right on that campus, right in their dorm room, right in those people that they walk by in the cafeteria, as well, how important that is. And reminding them that their influence at Ohio State might be short-lived, whatnot, but their influence will continue on, throughout the years. Ms. Julie, what would you say to young ladies or women who are interested in ministry, who are considering getting involved in ministry? What would you say to them? How would you encourage them in that regard?
As far as vocationally, you mean as their, I would say for sure to know the word, know your Bible, get to know Jesus and his word. It's good to read books and stuff like that, but have a biblical grid and, just make sure that you have that eternal perspective. I always call it an audience of one. I found that after I got married and started having children, it's like, you're alone a lot. You're doing a lot of things, and you're worshiping God through the dailiness of life. And so, not to be discouraged by that, but as I've gotten back into ministry as women, you don't always have to have a pat on the back or like, oh, you're doing great. And I think being a mother actually taught me that that you worship God through all the stuff that you do, and you don't constantly have to have somebody. That's why I stayed motivated in ministry, not because I always have somebody telling me you're doing a great job. It's because I'm serving God in him alone and storing up treasures in heaven. So just having an eternal perspective and loving people, leading with love.
That's good. I was blessed to have you guys, the women's basketball team kind of went through the book, the Uncommon Athletes Team Studies. And I also had the opportunity to share with the men's basketball team. Ms. Julie, as you went through that, what were some high points in that, or what were some takeaways, some things that you may have helped the young ladies in being uncommon?
Yeah. I went through the whole book with women's lacrosse and women's basketball. Every lesson was really good, but I think just the attitude, the one on attitude was really, really important. Having an uncommon attitude, uncommon sacrifice, especially on your team. Women's lacrosse, women's basketball, obviously they're such team sports, but to be also unselfish as far as like putting your the other teammates first. I think for me, maybe it's just a women's thing, but relationships on the team are so important, not just for their mental health, but also for their performance. And as they're putting their teammate first, and you talked about that all through this, and sacrificing for other people, their play and their mindset and their success will be far greater. So those are some of the things: the overcoming every chapter, integrity, selflessness, sacrifice, preparation. Every one of those are great. I recommend this highly.
Thank you. Hey, Tom, as we wrap this up, one of the chapters in the book, Tom, I talked about being a person of integrity. And we know how important that is. And a lot of athletes, you've seen a lot of athletes come through that facility, for football, basketball. Could you just share a little bit about, for these young athletes, how important being a man and a young woman of integrity is, how important that is?
Yeah, I think I think to have an integrity, you have to have a base. You have to have some roots. We're told to grow up in the faith, to sink your roots in it. We've all seen a tree that got blown over in the wind, and the tendency is sometimes that tree cracks, sometimes the roots just come up. But a tree with really deep roots tends to endure the storms. And I would say that that's very true with the guys I work with. That is, they sink their roots, they can endure the rigors of lots of practice, very hard workouts, the classes, and all the things that they're called to do. And I think that sometimes some of these guys I work with, they're 21 years old, and I forget that sometimes. They almost seem like they're 27 or 28 or older. We had a guy here a number of years ago, one of the earlier guys I worked with, Malcolm Jenkins, who's still in the league and is pretty known and has been outspoken in a lot of social justice issues. And but we used to kid Malcolm. We call him Uncle Malcolm, even when he was a student. Because he seemed kind of
like a sage,
like an uncle or something.
Just wise, beyond his years.
And he still is. He's amazing. We love him.
And now he looks even more like that because he's got a little gray in the beard and the whole thing. But so now he really is probably Uncle Malcolm. But he, when you see the influence they can have by having integrity, and also by being engaged in what they're doing. It's not just I'm on the football team and I happen to be a Christian. I'm a strong Christian who's a football player, and my faith affects how I pursue my football also, and I've seen through the years, we've seen a number of guys that, were Christians that were probably also some of the hardest working guys on the team. You can go back, you would remember Mike Doss, you'd remember, just even some of these other people I've mentioned. I mean, I don't think anybody on wrestling team would have said Kyle Snyder didn't work hard, or Aaron Kraft didn't work hard. Very hard to accuse them of that, but then that gives them a credibility also with their fellow athletes. So
I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your time, and most importantly, I want to thank you on behalf of the Ohio State community and just the community at large on helping to build up those roots, those deep roots that Tom talked about. That was a great analogy, and that's what I believe you guys have done. Some students come there already knowing the word, have gone to church all their life or whatnot, and some may have not. But you guys have a way of meeting everybody where they are. You don't judge anybody. You just meet them right where they are, and you let the Spirit of the Lord lead you to take them where God wants them to go, not where we want them to go, but where God wants them to go. And the proof is in the pudding, just watching the impact that you guys have had through the years. So I want to thank y'all for coming on side. This young fella here, back in the day, and schooling me up and just being a model for Carmen and I on what ministry looked like as a couple doing ministry. So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Tim. And we just appreciate your ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Tim. We appreciate you and your integrity through the years.
You've been such an encouragement to us, and we're so blessed by both you and Carmen. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Let's go Bucks. Let's keep this winning going. All right.
Okay.
We'll talk to you later. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.